So on one side we have many worlds, on the other side we have collapse. Both of these views are subscribed to by several people. Most people subscribe to collapse. The reason for this is because you have physics textbooks that tell you that collapse is the appropriate interpretation, and you are measuring your capacity to understand the truth of things based on how you are assessed by the people who will assess you by how well you regurgitate physics textbooks. On the other hand, you have people who subscribe to many worlds because they are counter signalers who went and read less wrong, wanted to gain some sort of secret hidden knowledge that other people didn't have. Most people do not actually understand why you, in fact, have a better case for one over the other, or why Bohmian mechanics is wrong, for instance. So, this is a symptom of excessive privilege that I am displaying here, a proper understanding. So, many worlds is really that which you are led to when you understand that empiricism should be valued. Collapse is that which you are led to when you believe in solipsism, that which you directly, immediately observe must somehow have a supersedent truth over simply updating over third person probabilities. So, many worlds is what you get when you are an empiricist. Many worlds says that there are regions of the amplitude distribution in which you find yourself absolutely in madness. You are in a betrayal branch where you stab all the people around you just because all of a sudden you get a feeling that you have to stab them. And this is actually happening in an infinite amount of regions of the amplitude distribution. Whereas in collapse, no, you could spare yourself because you just believe that they aren't real. You believe that there is a separate magisterium past which the Hilbert space dimension becomes fiction, past which superposition no longer applies. However, this is arbitrary and not in line with Occam's razor, because there are, in fact, instances of putting viruses in superposition. We are increasingly putting larger and larger objects in superposition. Humans are in superposition. Your brain is in superposition. Entire planets are in superposition. The universe is in superposition. This is just because you don't assume that decoherence stops at some point. It's the notion of macroscopic decoherence, but even the notion of macroscopic and microscopic is arbitrary. It's just decoherence all the way to the top or all the way down. So why then do I have an equal sign there? I have an equal sign because you still believe that there is an anthropic core to you, even when you believe in many worlds. You still don't jump out the window thinking that a superhero is going to come out and save you. Instead, you believe that there are larger infinities than others. And there is actually no way to get the squared amplitude of the wave function except as the behavior of a perfectly rational agent, updating his probabilities with regards to the Hilbert space dimension in which we exist. Of course, that is a choice. To be rational is a choice. It is not something which you have to do. You could die. You could just choose to die, and then you would be swallowed by that which is most rational. So the behavior of the rational agent is that which permanently survives. And that's what leads also to this structure here that I have laid out. How does it lead to it? You're probably going to see it once I explain what I have here. So in reality, we have experience set up in such a way that it binds from little pieces that exist in relative reference frames. So all the pieces are eternal, because otherwise it would violate special relativity to say that they're not eternal, to believe that there is a Newtonian mechanics sweeping forward. So all the little pieces that go into making your experience are then bound into something that is highly specific, into this highly specific experience of being a person. Then you are beset by aging, disease, and the approximation of death, and you are no longer able to bind into things that are complex. Instead, the binding is into that which is extremely simple and extremely widely shared across the multiverse in terms of uh, the propensity for that state of existence to occur. We have triangles in the entire thing and not squares. We could have had squares, and if we had squares, we would simply find ourselves in an infinite sequence of zero cost actions. When you find yourself in an infinite sequence of zero cost actions and you are performing a search over that state space, then you will get stuck forever. You get stuck in that local optima. The way that evolution works so as to not get stuck in local optima is by having high redundancy of a particular genotype. Here the genotype is this triangle form that I am describing, in which you have low specificity to high specificity. That's the way that information is encoded into Sorry, out of battery. Okay, so I was saying we have a unit, and this unit could have contained triangles and squares. So in other words, you could have had situations in which you go from low specificity to high specificity, and situations in which it was possible in reality to just stay in low specificity. That would remove some of the redundancy that exists within each unit. Each unit is a node in a highly connected network. Why do I say that? It's a node in a highly connected network because this is the only way that evolution can proceed without getting stuck in local maxima. So this is the case both in mimetic evolution and genetic evolution. It should also apply to all of these timeless constituents that become bound into an experience. We don't know the mechanism exactly by which they bind because the uncertainty principle is coded into reality. So, in other words, you can never know where the squared modulus actually comes from. You can only believe in rationality and circularly derive the Born rule. In the same way, you can never actually know what is selecting, what is selecting for fitness of your phenotype. You never know. All you know is the structure that allows for evolution to continue to occur, to progress, without getting stuck in local maxima. And that is one in which the units are highly connected. That allows for the next best step up in phenotype to be at hand's reach whenever you need an update in fitness. So, why is it triangles as opposed to squares? What would squares mean? If you had squares, then what you would have is a state of near-death experience, or the state that you are in before you become able to have a complex self-model that appropriates complex experiences, high specificity. So you always stay in that state of simplicity if you had squares. However, if reality looks anything like what we see in searches over state spaces in constructive mathematics, then what you would find is that you would get an infinite sequence of zero cost actions, which in turn would lead to you getting stuck in that local maxima. So the only way to not get stuck is by actually having this high redundancy, a sort of samsaric cycle in which you always go from low specificity to high specificity. Haven't you noticed that you're always a person talking about those experiences that you had that were so blissful or so simple that you might have had in a near-death situation, having taken psychedelics or practiced Eastern meditation? Nonetheless, you're here. Why are you always here? Why are you always appropriating that as opposed to just staying in that? Because if you could stay in that, there would be nothing else. So this is it.